We're gonna like dive in way more
I've been,
to
yes.
hear like the whole process and journey and just like before we get started, like wow, wow, like so cool. So cool. Really, really cool to see that you're just like in such a better place. And
Thank you.
yeah, we're just gonna get started before I cry, honestly, because it's really fun to just see people's transformation. And it's an energy shift. It's the light in your eyes is different. It's the smile is more present. It's just like, I mean, obviously you're such a beautiful, amazing like presence to be around before, but then it's like you go through recovery and you're like, wow, wait a minute, like crazy to see. And honestly, Livia, like this is why I do what I do. Because like seeing this transformation that you've had is like I don't know. It's just so crazy to me. I'm like gonna cry. It's like so warming and touching to see that like you can shift so much. Whew, really am crying. That is crazy. I think it's really beautiful. So I am so excited to have you on the podcast today and to dive in to your journey, to anything that you are willing to share for all those girls who are going through this still right now. We're going to share about your experience with coaching. We're going to share about your experience getting your period back and all of that. And overall, just the hope and intention for this little conversation, this podcast with you today is for one, for you to like solidify and document your journey and have a space for
Love that.
that. And
Yeah.
two, to help others who are on their journey understand more of what this process is. And I know for me and I know for you, this was similar, but I really, really, really liked hearing other people's stories because it
Mhm.
helped me actually
Yes.
know that there was a way out.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yep.
I'm so on board with being open too, because I remember when I was in it, I can't remember everything to be honest. And I can share some of that, how that actually happens, which I didn't expect to happen for me because I feel like I have such good memory. I can remember things from when I was like 4, but there's some things that I can't remember. But I do remember being able to sense authenticity when someone was sharing their story. And that's actually how I came across your page because I remember listening to you and I could just feel that energy. You know what I mean? So I want to be as open as I can.
Beautiful. I love that. And that's going to be much appreciated. Um, Quickly hitting on this, it's very interesting because I've made so many notes of this myself where I'm like, I what did I do for 11 years? No, I can't even remember my life for 11 years. I'm like, there are so many just like black holes where I'm like, well, where did that year go? I was talking with my sister the other day. She went through a full-on divorce during my ED. I don't remember ever once being there to emotionally support her.
Mhm.
And like that's so sad to me now. That's like I wasn't even there to support you in this. So now as like a 31-year-old, I'm like going back and learning about her like divorce and like how she
Exactly.
felt. And I'm like, I'm so sorry I wasn't present. And yet she also understands I was dealing with all of my things. But it's a very common thing. And I'm curious just how you experience that as well. Just is it kind of black holes like that?
It's black holes, and it's also hard to keep track of because of how many phases that I feel like when you're deep in an ED that you go through because it starts as one thing. Like personally for me, it started with veganism. I cut out cheese. That was the little thing. I was just like, that's all I'm going to cut out. Dairy, cut it out. I'm like, going to Erewhon and buying Parmesan cheese, and that's a very vivid memory. But then and then there's some blanks, and then I'm like, oh wait, there was that phase where I was just all protein, no carb. And
Yeah.
then so it's like the dieting phases that you go through. And then there's the quasi recovery phase, and you're just so everything is tunnel vision. And like you said with your sister, it was COVID for me was one was the prime time that I was pretty low in it, and my sister had to come home from the East Coast, and it was her first year in college away, and we talk about it now. I'm like, I don't, those entire 4 years of her in college, I wasn't there for her. I never called her. She would come back and visit, and I would be upset that she was ruining my routine, that there was another person in the house.
Yeah.
How COVID affected my family working from home. I wasn't there for my family or my cousins who, their father got diagnosed with a terminal illness and a life sentencing, and I wasn't there for them. And now connecting with them again and connecting with my sister and just coming together as a family through that, and being able to be there for them, I relate to you. I'm asking, I'm like, wait, where was I? Oh, I didn't go to my grandmother's funeral. who I was
I
very
remember
like,
that, Livia,
"Mhm,
because, and can I share this? Because this is so
yes,
interesting.
there."
I remember I have a very good memory with all of our sessions, with all of my clients, honestly. But I always remember the little tiny random details. You were really afraid that there wasn't going to be enough food for you at your grandma's funeral. And I remember sharing with you, I was like, you're going to be surrounded by humans. Like, humans normally have food around them. There's going to, like, it's going to be fine. And you can bring snacks and all that. You were in the beginning of your process, you were trying to go all in, but it was just so clear that there were still so many hangups on like, but I have to be able to have my food at this time.
Exactly.
And I remember that being like, oh, I hope she like is able to go. It's just going to be another thing to process, but it is what it is, right? We all like go through those things and you can like see it now. But it's funny that I actually remember that conversation that we had.
Yes, I also remember that session because I was so nervous. I was like, oh, is Chloe gonna see I'm not where I'm supposed to be? And I was like overthinking because I was one of those types. I know not everyone with EDs experienced this, but I did really want to recover. There was that my like healthy voice, as we call it, or whatever you want to call it. Um, Gosh, I haven't said that out loud in so many years.
So funny. Yeah.
But that voice in your head that really wants you to be normal again, was very strong for me. And I remember just not wanting to have the brain that I had. So when I went into that session with you, I remember just being like, oh, is she going to tell that I am not really where I like claim to be or whatever? And it is interesting because after and when you are fully recovered, you have to process those decisions that you made when you were sick. And that's a whole other grieving process as well. That's why there is so many phases in the journey. It's a long journey. That's why it's so important to encourage people to just get on it. I remember thinking to myself, I have so much work to do to get to where I want to be. So the sooner you start, the better. Because once you get to that other side, there's another window and another door, and you're just constantly going through phases. Um, Sorry, I get so sidetracked, but
No, no, no. I love this. And even just to that for 1 second here, I was talking with a client this morning and she's like, well, I just gotta wait until like my brother's wedding. So I just gotta wait another week. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how much there is to work through. It's not all like you're not gonna go through all of recovery in 1 week. Like let's try and build some stability here to move you forward because this is gonna be a long process. And every time we play the game of, well, I'll do it then, and I'll do it then, and I'll do it then, we end up just continually putting off this whole journey. And it's so interesting too, the whole seasons. And I'm thinking about it now where I'm like, I had the raw vegan season, I had the carnivore season. Not carnivore, I was like more keto, but like very heavily meat-based. I had my GAPS diet season. And that's really actually kind of how I've blocked my life is by all the different seasons of my diet.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that goes into like the food scarcity. It's so funny to me now to think that I would not go to a family function, especially something so serious and um, being there for everyone in your family who's mourning, but the food is more important. And that's just so, if the people in my life who know me, they know that that's just not
Yeah.
me. And it's just so, like, if anyone were to be there, it would be me now in this phase of my life. But looking back, I just remember, again, it's hard to have those emotions when you're in a healthy place. But at that time, I just remember having this fear of food not being available. And that lasted well into like my all-in journey and when I was eating and when I even when I put on weight, I remember like when I started doing better and we would travel, like we would go to Palm Springs and I was in a really good place, I would still need to pack like a bunch of snacks.
Oh, I
But
remember.
then with like restrictive snacks, even at this phase, it was like I just needed to have food with me at all times. And for the longest time, I believe it ended with like carrying a little bar, like a granola bar in the car. Um, and now, like, obviously, anywhere I go, I know I can pull over to a gas station and there will be food there. It's just the fact that my brain just couldn't comprehend that just shows how your brain gets when it's malnourished. And
Oh. You
it's
also have to
that
have the flexibility of being able to, and you do now where I'm like, well, I don't care if I eat a pretzel or a chip or whatever it is. So like I have more options available to me. A big sign for me that like I was like, whoa, this is really cool was the first time I went to the airport without packing anything. I had no snacks, I had no nothing. Like I am eating what they are feeding me on the plane. And I remember that being like so revolutionary because I moved to Hawaii with literally two 50-pound bags. One of the bags was filled with my snacks, the little like raw vegan cookies and things
Oh
like
man.
that. The whole 50 pounds was just like my snacks that I needed to bring with me because I was so afraid that they wouldn't have those foods in Hawaii. And then my whole backpack was filled with stuff. And it's so funny, I don't think about it. I'm like, there's food at the airport, there's snacks on the plane, there's things that I can buy on the plane for snacks. Yeah, it just allows you to like finally focus on your life a lot more.
Exactly. And even to go beyond that, when you're at a place where you're comfortable in your body again, and I think this really this era changed for me when I my hormones were rebalanced and I got my period back. When I'm out, I don't feel like I'm gonna have a blood sugar crash at any point either. I wasn't scared because I don't know if not everyone, I'm assuming, goes through this, but I did have a fear. The ironic thing of having a eating disorder with it's one of the highest mortality rates, right? It's so ironic because I was also terrified of dying, of death. Like that is a fear that I've had. That's probably the first fear that I ever had as a child. I remember sitting at the table and holding my sister's hand under the table at Christmas because I was looking around at all these people I loved and just thinking, oh my gosh, something could happen to these people. I was a very anxious child in terms of obsessing over fear of death. So having that eating disorder is so ironic for me because I was so afraid of dying, and yet I would go out after hours of not eating. But anyway, to go back on track to what I was saying was when I go out, I don't need to feel the need to pack any food. And I also feel comfortable where if I'm out for a few hours or a couple hours, I'm going to be okay to where we get to that. Let's say I'm going out to dinner. I'm not like paranoid thinking, oh my gosh, I need to eat now. Or, I'm like so hungry and I need to eat or I'm going to pass out. That feeling, I never get that. I'm always balanced and or like, if you know that you're going to be eating in a couple hours and you just ate lunch, you can eat a snack right before you go on top of lunch. Like you need to plan out you don't need to plan it. There's no planning. Like life is, not everything's in control anymore. And I think that when I look back, the thing that I remember the most was everything needing to be controlled. And it's so funny because the thing that I struggle with now in my present life is control, but not in related to my eating disorder. But I have those tools from my eating disorder that I use in my daily life that keep me so grounded, which is why I do prioritize meditation and I do prioritize remembering that, back to that fear of death that I've had since childhood is not everything is in your control. And that's okay. And that's something that I need to practice in my daily life. So if there's anything that my eating disorder taught me today, as the main tool in my daily life now as a fully recovered female is just everything's in the hands of the universe or God or whatever you believe in and take it day by day. Yeah, that's where
Yeah, I love that. It's so beautiful and so many things there actually that I like just pulled from that. But hmm, I want to like hit on one point here.
keep her thoughts for.
One, yeah, bringing it back to the situation with your grandma, right, and her funeral. And it's so interesting because you mentioned control, and when you were talking about that experience, I literally had that thought of it's so funny how we think that the ED gives us so much control, and yet here you were, and you didn't even have the ability to be who you naturally are, which is someone who is very supportive and very loving towards your family. And it really just like is so helpful when we start shattering this belief that this control is saving us, helping us, or that we are even in control because it's such an illusion. And I also wanted to bring it into this one point too. I now kind of remember what I was going to say. Now that you've experienced this, being in energy debt, going through the recovery process, being fully recovered now, do you understand how no amount of meditation back there could have helped your brain recover versus
Yes.
like just food recovering you and your brain like working properly?
Yes. So that is something that I actually think about so much because I remember I was obsessed with this idea of weight. And I thought, and I remember, and I'm sure you remember this with me because I was always like, oh, but like I'm fully recovered mentally, but I just haven't put on the weight yet. like Chloe, I'm fully recovered. Like, don't worry. Like, my brain's there, but I just, I don't have my period back. That's okay. It'll come. It's fine. And I
Remember,
would
I was like, there's no such thing.
no
Like,
such thing. And I think that's something that we are in denial about for so long when we're in it because our biggest fear is weight gain. That is I mean, not everybody is underweight when they go through an eating disorder, and you don't need to be drastically underweight to be suppressing your body weight and to have your hormones out of balance. That's something, because I remember I didn't have my period back for a while when I did have the weight on. And I remember just thinking that I could get my brain there because I was someone who researched everything, as you know.
you're
I mean,
so intelligent.
I found you. I asked my parents, I was like, I want to work with this. I want to work with Chloe. And it was constantly me going to them being like, I need to get out of this. Obviously, they were worried about me. Um, but at that point, I was already 18 and they couldn't just send me to a clinic because I refused to go to a clinic and I wanted to do it my way, the control, which we can get into that on opinions about that. But because I am glad the way that I did it, but because I didn't know that it had to be on my terms because that's just how I am about everything.
Think that's how a
But
lot of people are. And that's why a lot of my work is like empowering you to finally take the steps, right? So it's
exactly.
less of like I'm an authority over you being like, you have to do this, more I'm helping you process why you're not doing the things that you really want to do,
Yes.
and giving you all the tools to be able to move forward and actually start doing those things.
Yes. But to get back to your original point, I definitely felt like, gosh, how do I say this? Um, Weight gain is the most important step
Yeah.
of everything. Because not only does it get especially as a female, gets your hormones back, just hormone imbalance, has that's the thing that it's so funny because when I was working with you, I did not think that was the most important thing, even though that's what you specialize in. I was so not fixated on, like, I wanted to get my period back because I
Got
wanted
your period, didn't you, at some point though in our coaching?
and I did. I got it back and then I lost it.
Okay.
And then, which is something that we should also talk about because and it's so, one of the advice that I actually just want to put out there into the conversation that you gave me was when you want something so much, sometimes you want it, you want it, you want it, and you're just so fixated on getting it. And I remember you telling me, you were like, don't fixate so much on wanting it so much and just be and just relax and just
Be
go through
the
the
person
process.
that can have the period, be in that
Exactly.
state of health. Yeah, sometimes we're so fixated on it that it drives up our stress even more in regards to the period.
hmm But yeah, I just want to stress the importance of weight gain because at the end of the day, it is about the food and it is about the restriction and it is about being malnourished because of what that does to your body and not only your body, but your brain. Because you think you've reached all these realizations with your malnourished brain, but really you haven't. And it's all just a facade to, in a way, put off the full recovery. Because it's like the pure definition of quasi recovery to me is just thinking that your brain's there, but your body hasn't caught up.
Yeah, I was telling the girls in the group, we had a group call today, and I was like, all of you guys, I know everyone so well as you guys are so intelligent, but that's almost your problem, is that you're trying to think your way through recovery and that doesn't happen. Now, there's a lot that we need to process, right? You processed a lot, I'm sure, post your recovery journey. And that's a big part of it is understanding how to have a healthy relationship to food. Like we have to do the mental stuff 1000%. And when it stays up in our brain, I remember telling you this, it's knowledge in our brain, it's wisdom when we've actually lived it. So it's one thing to be like, we need to have food freedom. It's so good for your health to like be so free and to not stress about food. But when you're still controlling every little thing, well, that knowledge doesn't do anything for you. It just continues to make you think that, oh, so sly how the ED works. It makes you think, oh, you're already fully recovered. You've done all of this. And that was our biggest thing in our coaching together. I was like, oh, this girl, like you almost knew more than me in recovery. And I was like, we need to get out of the knowledge. We need to actually start shifting some things.
Exactly. It's the action. And it's funny because when I think about it now, I think about it almost as a toxic partner where they're constantly being like, "Oh, I'm gonna change, I'm gonna do these actions," and they're so communicative and they know exactly how to be healthy and how to be a good communicator, yet they never actually communicate and they never step into that. And I remember you telling me one of the advice that stayed with me at the time, it didn't seem like the most important, but now I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, that she was, and it's actually even delayed. Like sometimes I'll be at work and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm working and I have a job and I'm going to school and and I have a life. And I remember you saying, Livia, you know so much, just step into real life. Just step
At the end
into
of your recovery. Yeah.
my recovery. I remember you saying that, and that clicked for me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started to take action. And that was when action fully took over. And, if you're at work and people are like, oh, do you want to go get some Mexican food at the truck? It's like, oh, yeah. But if you're in ED and you're just thinking, oh, like when I get a job eventually, when I get that job and I start working and having and doing normal things and normalcy in your life, then when someone asks me to go get food, I'm going to say yes. But you're saying that to yourself and you're not in that position to actually go and take action and do those things and act normal. So that's so important. And I have those moments every once in a while where I'm like, yep, if only I took action and didn't waste, 7 years of my life.
I love what you are sharing here. And it's not a waste. You learn so much, but I totally get it. Like we
Yes.
don't want to, it's a journey that we want to be as short as possible. But just what you're sharing there is so important. And I'm glad you took that away. So many people are like, oh, well, I'm in recovery, so I can't do all these things yet. I'm like, no, life is what will recover you. And of course, when you're at the very, very, very beginning, there can be an isolation phase. There can be a like, I got to figure this out and get to some sort of stability. But I think a lot of us wait. I have to have utter food freedom until I go out and have that job and can be able to say yes to all these things. And like actually putting yourself in the situation of saying yes to those things is what wires safety into those actions and is what gets you to like finally heal your relationship to food.
Yes, it's interesting because I remember being deep in my ED tendencies and just being like, I don't want recovery, and then going to that phase of wanting recovery, which is great. You really want recovery, but there's a little trap that I feel like isn't talked about in the community as much, which is this trap of being comfortable in recovery, which I guess is what people call quasi recovery, because you want to be recovered. So you've reached that acceptance of wanting to be recovered, but you get too comfortable and it's like this little recovery bubble. And I look back now and I'm like, I got too obsessed with all in. I got too obsessed with knowing all about it and wanting to be all in and doing all these actions of food freedom. But it doesn't benefit you unless, first of all, you're putting on the weight and getting your hormones balanced and getting your period back. And also if you're when you're stepping into real life, because then it's just you in this constant state of recovery
Creating
and
an identity
it keeps
around
you
it.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you say we haven't talked about that much in the recovery space. It's the exact conversation that we had today in the call, in our group call. It was the complacency of when you get a little bit more safe and then you become really complacent in the ED and then you stop pushing forward because you're like, oh, I'm a little bit better. I'm a little bit safer and I know all these things now. And then like we just create this like I don't know, we just get really stagnant. And we talked about how stagnancy is the last thing that we ever want to be in as humans in general. Like we want to keep on moving forward. Um, Question here in regards to the action, because you're talking about how important that is. For someone who's right at the beginning, what would you say is the most important action for them to start their journey with, or share what it was for you? Like, what did you finally start taking action on?
Ooh, there's so many topics I can go into with this question. Um, I would say I'm going to go a direction that you might not be expecting because looking in when I was in that place, I never thought that this was something that I really needed. But for me, it was taking people out of my life that were keeping me stuck and taking behaviors out of my life that were keeping me stuck from recovery and going all in. That was the first step. And then obviously there's steps about getting out of that like restrictive recovery phase where you're just like deer in headlights for towards recovery. But the first step is, and this is going to go into a little bit of like social media and my opinions on that, which
Mhm.
again could be different for everyone. And recovery, obviously, we know isn't a one size fits all for people because everyone has their different things that are keeping them in this mindset. But for me, social media and my Instagram account, because from the age of, I would say 12, 13, I started posting on Instagram and I did get a pretty large following for my age group and just where social media was at. And I had this pressure to be a certain person online, and that translated into my real life. And I didn't even realize that. And I was surrounding myself with people who were like minded in their opinions around body image, in health, and the wellness groups
Yeah.
we can call it. And I'm one of those people that believes the people that you hang out with reflect who you are, and the actions in your life reflect who you are. Um, so for me, it was very important to separate myself from that persona in my head, if that makes sense. And um, because I did do a lot of research, this was a common thing that I would see would people would be or girls struggling with eating disorders would keep saying, I remember researching on Reddit and they're just like, other people are going to think I've gained so much weight and I look obese and I look like this. Other people, other people, other people. And I look back now and I'm like, what? And I remember thinking that too. I was like, other people are going to think I gain weight. But wait, it's COVID at this time. I have no friends that I'm seeing. I'm isolating at home. I had to leave school because I was, you know, so unwell that I couldn't function. I had to leave my senior year. Um, and I had no life. I had broken up with my boyfriend because I had no sex drive. And, that was just, I was like, oh, I'm asexual now. No. But I just remember isolating so much, and yet I was restricting, and I was thinking, all the people are going to think this of me. They're going to think that I'm this. They're going to think that I'm not fit enough. And it was just this upset body checking every day. But for who? For what? And it all started because of social media and editing and filtering. And I remember having this conversation with myself when I was 15, saying, I want to look as good as I do in my photos, unedited. And that's what started it. And I want when everyone sees me, because I was in this crowd that was very focused on superficial things, appearances, um,
You're in a
and
city too that really is
yeah, growing up in Los Angeles, in the center of Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, Brentwood, Palisades area, that's where I grew up. It was very, LA influencer. Um, I don't even know how LA influencer influenced. But I just remember, and it wasn't just me in that situation, because again, I was reading on Reddit and I was reading on these blogs and online, just Googling whatever I could to see if other people could relate to this idea that there's other people like watching you and no one cares. No one is looking at you and analyzing your body. You're the one doing that. Obviously, there are people out there who have superficial beliefs and values, but do you even want to be around that? I didn't. And I knew what I wanted for my life. I knew that. So again, back to the initial question, I knew that I had to make the decision. Do I want to live the rest of my life surrounded by people who care basically only about their appearances and what they put online? Or do I want to live free from that in every sense of the word? And that is what pushed me to go all in, because I was like, I don't want to feel like I have shackles on me. And that caused me to first I just like went off the grid. I temporarily deactivated my account, and I had to, this is actually so crazy. And I talk about this with my mom now because she was my greatest support system through this. And I went to her, and it was COVID, and both of my parents were working from home. And I went to her, and we were taking a drive. And I told her, I was like, this was the moment that I like said anorexia out loud. And I was like, I think I have anorexia. And she already knew. The doctor already said it. The doctor already told her when we went to
You
our
had the
checkup.
realization
I
yourself,
had
like
the
it was,
realization
yeah.
myself that I was miserable. And we were in the car, and I was like, I need to go to Portugal. That's out of the country. For people who don't know, I'm half Portuguese. My mom's from Portugal, my dad's from California, and I was just like, I need to go as far away as I physically can to recover because of these imaginary people that are here watching me. My friends, the social media account, I need to just go off the grid and do that. That's what I needed. And it's so ironic that I didn't choose to go to a clinic or anything, but I did need that escape. Um, Not everyone needs that. And it's so funny because, of course, I came back and I relapsed. So I did the work there and did great. I came right back and I relapsed. And that's what made me realize it's not the place that you recover. There's nothing to do with that. You don't need to be isolated to recover. You need to get back into life to recover. It's not to get away. It's not to be hidden and recover and live your freest self. Your freest self is being unapologetically yourself in the world, with the world,
Yeah.
coexisting with the world. But that would be my one piece of advice is understand that you're going to have to do some very hard things. I had to eventually completely delete my Instagram account because I didn't care about that. And it was easy to do, actually. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life was deleting social media. And I could list, I mean, it would take hours to go into the reasons why social media can be toxic for those. Again, not everyone, because not everyone who struggles with eating disorders, it doesn't always start with being image based. It can actually be,
No, it doesn't, but it doesn't add to it, right? I think actually your mom used to follow me. I think you used to like find my stuff via your mom. You'd be like,
yeah,
my mom sent me these things.
yeah,
It's super cute. But no, it definitely is, there's a lot more to it. And that doesn't help. In my program, I literally now do like a 30-day like reset. And the reset is like get off of social media for 30 days. Like stop listening to all the, even the recovery stuff and all of that, especially because there's so many and it's not a hate towards this. I think there's a value and there's a place in this, but there are so many girls who are in the middle of their process on Instagram. And I've seen some of those accounts, I've been sent those accounts, and I end up like scrolling and I'm like, oh no. And then especially when they like offer coaching and I'm like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I don't think we should be offering coaching when we're not like fully recovered yet. Um, but
I would
I see a
like
lot of that.
I would like to make a little comment on that because I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember, but that is something that is so important to talk about. You do need to be careful with the content that you are seeing and who you are going into work with. Because I did have a person before you who fit my ideal coach for my fears, right? Of what I was afraid of. So I found this person and was like, I was like, oh, she's not gonna, let me stray too far into these. She's not gonna let me gain too much weight. Like that was that mentality for me is like, oh, she's gonna keep me in a place where it was this nutritionist but like an eating recovery nutritionist
Gonna
and
feel safe. She's gonna work you up step by
exactly.
step. Yeah.
And I won't go into details of this, but it was one of the most harmful things looking back now that it set me back even further from where I was. So it is really important to make sure that you're finding again, it's hard to do because you never really know. I know you're better at like sensing it, or I would say
Hard to know
recovery
when you're it's
people,
hard to know when you're in it.
it's hard to know when you're in it. And yeah, so I just wanted to add that little tidbit in there.
I love that you added that in because it is so easy for the ED to want to find something that's like, oh, this is going to like, yeah, not push me in the ways that I need to be pushed. Like I have a lot of girls who will say kind of similar things if they worked with other people and it's like, oh, they still wanted me to keep exercising. That's totally fine. I'm like, can you gain weight and get your period back? Yes, but like, are you truly going to feel confident that you don't need movement in your life anymore and it's not going to dictate your schedule and all these things and get you to say no? Like, you never took a break. And I think it's so healthy. That's why I'm like such a big proponent of like the all in. Not to say that we don't have steps and
Yeah.
we can't support you in structure in getting there, but eventually, if you want to fully recover, I think you have to jump 2 feet in. You have to allow your body to shift and change. You have to like eat enough and you have to fully let go of the exercise.
Yes.
And any other way is keeping control in, and the energy in which we created the ED cannot be the energy in which we get out. So if control created this mess, we can't control our way out. We have to trust and surrender out.
It's interesting that you bring up all in because I remember that being my fixation was all in. And I remember going back and forth for months about all in, researching is all in the right way. And it's this obsession with the right way to recover. Um, but this idea of going all in, again, I'm also a very firm believer in all in. And I don't think personally that you can recover any other way, at least not with what I was experiencing. Um,
Do you think you could recover being vegan?
oh my goodness, no. I do
It
not
still
think
is
I
a
could.
big topic of conversation for so many people. And I'm like,
Wow.
interesting.
Just especially as a female, just with,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and actually allowing yourself to, and I remember I was fixated on, again, because orthorexia is about nutrients. I know it's, again, not everyone struggles with that, but I was big into like the quality of my food and the wellness industry and all that. Um, and just unconditional permission to eat all foods is what I credit getting my period back to. Because I remember when I started adding in more red meat, butter, fats, just like all of it. Again, unconditional permission to eat, which is all in, is what I credit getting my period back to. And I remember just the changes in my body when I got my period back of just feeling balanced again, feeling myself, not feeling all rigid and tense. And I love to talk about the benefits of gaining
Yeah.
weight and going all in and getting your period back because now I'm just like, if I could have told myself, like, your hair is gonna grow, like, you're not gonna, your hair is gonna be down,
Yeah.
like, my hair is down to my butt almost, and oh, you can filter that
Mine
out. It was
too, girl. Mine too.
my like long hair era, and
Yeah.
my nails are strong, and my skin is like hydrated again, like, and feeling, I wish something that I wish I could have gotten into my head at that time is you are not going to feel the way that you do in your body. You're not
I was
going to feel
literally
uncomfortable
just going to
in your
ask you that same question. That is so funny.
body.
So,
I was so
yeah,
paranoid. I was like, oh my God, like I don't want to have a chest. I don't want to have boobs. I don't want to take up space. And now I'm like, I'm
take
a
that space
woman.
up. You're like,
I
yeah,
love it. I
yeah.
and just like even being able to move, I remember like when I would be sitting, I was so tense, and I remember just sitting like one the few times that I would go out with friends and just even being touched bothered me. Like if anyone touched me, I would be like, I remember that, and now I love moving, and we talked about that. Um, just like being able to dance and move your body and in a way that is not about exercise, in a way that's just about, I don't know, taking up space and stepping into being feminine is something as well. I remember just being just scared of feeling like a female, which is so, and now I'm just like, oh my gosh, why would I
All the
want
girly
that?
things, all the
But
girly
again,
things.
you
Yeah.
need to eat and you need to get yourself hormonally balanced and get yourself balanced in every way.
Yep.
Um, and the only way to do that is by going all in. Because again, I wouldn't have felt the way that I felt because I remember it was like a distinct, like even like 2 weeks of just eating all animal, like anything just that's not vegan felt really good on my body. And again, like obviously like fats are great, like olive oil's great, but butter's
Butter.
great. Butter's better
Yeah.
and it does
Yeah.
um and also just like not being afraid of red meat or just any meat too. But again, not getting too obsessed and eating all protein. But to the people who are like, oh, I can just eat plant protein and I'm gonna feel great.
Yeah. Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question here? Because this is a big thing that when we're in it, we we look at or we think about that future self and oh, I'm going to gain the weight and all of that. And it is really petrifying and it's really terrifying. And we're like, I'm going to hate it all. And I'm not going to have the capacity to find love or to find joy or whatever it may be. Like, we don't feel like we have the capacity to deal with that. But did you find that as you went through the recovery process, that your capacity to deal with things also increased?
Yes, I do. Not only my capacity to deal with things, but also my patience and just all areas of my personality shifted um, drastically. Even with when I remember the first day I went all in, I remember just laughing and just like because I had enough energy to laugh. I
Yeah.
I don't think I laughed for all of those years that I was in my eating disorder. And if I did, it was a fake forced laugh. And
Mm.
um, your capacity to deal with things. Yes, a great example of this is that I think about now. When I was living at home, when I was in the thick of it, and for a while after, just again through all the phases, because there's so many phases. It didn't even have to be my lowest point. It could have been, my first relapse, little dabble there. But it was whistling. And this may sound silly, but I could not hear my dad whistle. My dad would come home and my dad's a very positive person. He'd be loving, he loves life. And he'd come home after a long day at work and he'd be whistling and humming to himself. And I would just sit there so angry and so irritable and so upset that he was whistling. So every area of my life, I was angry and negative, and the best way to describe it is everything was so serious.
You
When
were
you're in
hangry the whole time. I mean,
the most extreme form of hangry and you're so serious about everything, and then when you start to gain weight and you to get healthier, you're like, not everything is so serious. You don't have to be uptight about everything. And again, like you just stop. And this goes into giving yourself unconditional permission to eat and unconditional permission to gain weight. That's something that I don't think you can really get around. At least for me personally, I remember just being like, I want to gain weight, but I don't want to gain too much. And I wanted to have control over how much I gained or what I did. And the ironic thing about all of that is you're scared. You think the worst possible thing is going to happen when you go all in and when you gain weight. And then you do it and you're years plus into recovery and you're just, oh my gosh, it wasn't that bad. When you're fully recovered, you look and you're like, I thought I was going to be this, and I'm not. I am just how I felt pre-ED. The awkward thing about going through it as you transition into being a woman, though, is like, I can't say, like, oh, I'm how I was pre-ED because how I was pre-ED was
yeah,
like
things like changed.
12 if being, if
But you
being
feel like you're at where your body wants to be at.
I feel like I'm at where my body wants to be, and for the rest of my life, I have unconditional permission for that to change. And that doesn't just go for weight or your body. That goes for me, like for wrinkles, for everything. Again, we're in this
Mm.
age in society, again, growing up in LA, where I had friends who were getting work done at
Like Botox at 17,
18,
right?
17 even.
Yeah.
And the Botox and thing, I've given myself permission to age gracefully. That's something that,
Mhm.
again, you have to be firm in these beliefs when it comes to
I think
recovery.
that's key. It's understanding your values and like,
Yes.
oh gosh, someone said this the other day. She's like, I really value this and this and this. And I was like, no, you don't. You do not value that at all because every single action that you take, how you're living your life right now is so anti those values that I think you got to be real with yourself if you don't have those values.
Mhm. Exactly.
You
And
want those values, you got to like adjust your life to actually be, beauty is natural and freedom. And like you got to start adjusting because how you're living now is actually promoting different values.
it is interesting because I remember when I was in high school, um, to go into this new direction that I kind of want to mention just because I remember struggling with this. When I was in high school, I got bullied for the size of my lips because I always grew up with having very full lips naturally, and at the time, it wasn't popular when I was a freshman in
Filler
high
wasn't a
school.
thing before.
Filler wasn't a thing,
Yeah.
like kind of like the thin, like just like smile, like it wasn't, again, Kylie Jenner, she didn't have her lip filler yet. It didn't start. That era didn't start. And I got a lot of attention like from a young age for my appearances, and I had these boys write this song about me, and they made fun of my lips, saying, Livia looks like her lips got stung by a bee. And I remember walking around high school like that,
Mm.
trying not to have my lips fuller because I was so embarrassed. And then, of course, like trends change.
Yeah,
And
isn't
that's
that, I was just thinking that's so crazy because now like every single woman is getting lip filler and
getting filler and all that. And it's like, that's why when again, I'm not on social media, so I rarely see it, but I'll be standing at the grocery store and I'll look and there'll be a little magazine and I'll be like, oh, wow, like that person looks different from when I used to be online and see them and they have all the work done. I just tell myself, I'm like, yeah, like we'll see. Like in 10 years, a new trend's gonna be happening in it and you're gonna
everyone's
want
gonna
that.
be dissolving
You're
their filler.
constantly, exactly, you're constantly trying to chase this beauty standard that's always going to change. And another thing that I wish I could tell myself is you are never going to achieve what you want. You are never going to be thin enough. That's something that's said in the recovery community a lot for a reason, because you really are never, you're constantly chasing to be the healthiest in orthorexia. Um, but you never are because it's just, there's always a new trend and there's always a new diet to do.
Yeah.
Um, so just being unconditionally, and then another thing that I want to say is being just like human, and you talked about this on your channel, I remember being researching on just how humans were before these trends. And that was important to me. That was something that really changed my, like the Minnesota starvation study. That's something that changed my perspective on just what was happening to my brain. Because I look back now and I'm like, why was I acting the way that I was around food? Why was I like storing food in my
In your
pantry,
freezer. No,
in
in
my
your freezer. Your
freezer?
freezer was, I think, I'm not gonna lie, I think your mom sent me a picture one day and it was like Livia's freezer. I was like,
Yes,
oh,
I would
I remember
just hoard tons of food. And
that.
yeah, I'm getting like so sidetracked going into this, but this is something that I did want to talk about. Is just what your body does when it is malnourished. And even when I was hoarding all that stuff, I wasn't the like most drastically malnourished I had been. That was just like moderately malnourished, in my opinion.
Which
But it was years
moderately, it's
moderately,
so
but
like moderate malnourished, but yeah.
years of restriction. I was like, what restriction does to your brain and to your body needs to be studied. It is studied. It's just like
It's really
I,
crazy. I
I
mean, even to the point of like your brain, when you're in energy debt, doesn't handle change in the way that like a brain who's in energy balance does, which is why there's so much fear about shifting and changing and so much control because your brain all of a sudden isn't as adaptive to things shifting and changing. So it like
yeah,
throws you off, which is why you try and keep things, everything very, very similar.
exactly. And I do believe that the people who do struggle with eating disorders is again, that's like something that you will realize is almost by nature. Like as humans, I know that a lot of us want to control. Not everyone gravitates towards that, but the OCD in my life, it makes sense. Like looking at the time, I'm like, I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe I'm so obsessed with food, and I can't believe this is my life. Like I
There's
can't believe
something wrong with me because
there's
I'm
something
obsessed
wrong
with
with
the
me.
food. Yeah.
Exactly. And looking back now, I'm like, oh no, there was nothing wrong with you. You were just manifesting your control through food and in your life in that way.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yes.
yeah,
Switching the conversation here a little bit, you and I decided to coach. And I'm curious hearing your perspective now on getting support through this because I know so many women. I mean, I talked to three women even just today who are interested in like coaching. And there's always so much fear and so much hesitancy and so much I can't invest in myself, so much like I don't know if I really want to commit and all of that. I would love to hear your experience from your side of having someone who's been through it and getting coached, and if you would go back and if you would have done that way again.
this is actually something I think about a lot. And when I am, I've had situations where I'm pretty open with people in my life now that like I don't ever bring it up in conversation, but it's more like my parents, if they're, they have family friends and they have a child who is starting to struggle. It's very eating disorders are so common that it does come up a lot.
You've sent me a friend, and she
Exactly.
recovered. She's
I've
fully
sent
recovered.
a friend.
Hmm.
And I even have a friend that has a son that is in it, and that my parents had to give them advice for their son, which was like such a unique experience. And my parents are so educated because they went through it with me. But um, when that conversation comes up, it's often the first thing that is met by parents or even by the child themselves is, should I send them to a clinic? Should I do outpatient? Should I do coaching? Should I just let them try to do it on their own? There's so many areas that you can go into, but my my first advice is honestly the common thing that comes up is all in. So I'm like, yes, you need to go all in. The issue with that is that for me rules out clinics and it rules out outpatient because there is a lot of control in those systems.
Very true.
And one thing that I do not regret is not going to an outpatient or inpatient. And again, it's like very controversial in the community. I remember being like, I remember lying to my friends saying, oh, I'm going to an inpatient because I didn't think that anyone would believe I could do it.
I would love to be able to say there's great like centers and that can help you, but they like where? Like there's a handful that I've heard are decent, but I don't see a space that is actually really, really focused on making you the empowered, confident, like woman that you want to be.
Yes, so yeah, I'm a bit conflicted. I do sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I wish that I say it as a joke. I'm like, I joke to my parents. I'm like, when I was first diagnosed, I wish that when I was underage still, I was like, I wish you guys just sent me there and I put on all the weight. But then I was like, wait, I put on the weight before and I came back and I got out of it. So it's
It's not just a weight thing. The weight
not
thing
just about
helps a ton. Yeah.
yes, it helps a ton, but staying at that weight requires talking to someone enough, like the sessions that I had with you, to where, and also someone who understands what you went through, because that's something that not everyone that you're working with at clinics or in outpatient have gone through, especially if you're working with a doctor. It's something that I see a lot, especially with parents, is they're so trusting of doctors over someone who actually went through an eating disorder. And I get it. The parents are like, oh, I want someone with a degree. I want someone with
Get all
that
the lab work. Let's get all
all
this
the
done
lab
on
work,
site.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was obsessing over that, obsessing over my labs and getting advice, it's like, oh, you know, I remember getting advice from a nutritionist when I was so emaciated that I, at that point, I talk about it with my mom. I was counting my days that I had left on Earth, and I had a nutritionist telling me, you need to eat your broccoli. That is something that I look back now and I'm like, that just shows how working with someone who has been through it versus like when I started working with you and you gave me this permission that I needed
Mhm.
and it I literally I don't want to get emotional but I do credit I told myself I
I
wouldn't.
already cried before, so I cried in the first minute of
I
talking
know,
to you.
I
I was like,
know.
oh my gosh.
But I I do credit you for getting me out of well, obviously like I had to I do
You did the work, but I was there supporting for sure. Yeah.
I couldn't have and I the most vivid memory I have still to this day is your video came up, your YouTube video came, and I was doing just hours of research. And again, like counting my days, this was the stage that I was in on, I think I was on Tabitha Farrar, however you pronounce her name.
That's fair.
And you popped up right underneath her. And I clicked on you. And I remember for the next month, I just watched your videos. I watched all of your videos and I had so many realizations and just click moments where I was like, I that was when I was debating going into treatment or not. And I was like, I just want to work with someone like this. And then finally, usually at the end of your videos, I would kind of like skip and I would go to the next one. But this one video, I watched all the way to the end. And then you go, you're like, oh, and if you're interested in working with me, I was like, that put in my head, I'm like, I need to work with someone just like her. And I remember for a week, I was like, I need to work with someone just like her. But I couldn't find anyone that was like really hitting all the things that I knew in my deepest, healthiest, like future self, like me now. I feel like I knew that working with someone like you was going to get me to live the life that I know that I deserve, that full freedom life.
Mhm.
And I just remember watching all the way through and then you being like, work with me. And I sent that one to I cropped the little clip and I sent it to my family and I
Good to
was
know
like,
to put that at the beginning now of calls.
yes, put it at the beginning
Yeah.
because just realizing, oh, I can work with her. And I remember texting my, I was like, I will do anything to work with her. I sent that to my family. And of course they were like, in my head, I was like, I don't know why I thought, my parents project me wanting to recover. At this point, they were like, whatever will get her to be okay because they were worried sick about me. But um, I got so strayed from whatever original topic we were going into.
Oh,
But
no, it was just the coaching and your experience with that. It was what you were sharing.
yes,
Yeah.
well, coaching, yes. So when I look back now, I'm like, I am glad that I did one-on-one coaching because I could not have, just me personally, again, it's not one size fits all for everyone in recovery, but I could not have gotten to the place that I'm at now, being fully recovered, if I didn't do coaching because of what I know I could not have gained from that dynamic, especially like working with the doctor or working with nutritionists. Because when you, at least the outpatient and the inpatient that was offered to me, it was you're working with a doctor and you're working with a nutritionist. And I essentially did an outpatient myself. I worked with my primary doctor and I worked with a nutritionist through my healthcare. So I was basically doing outpatient without like being around a bunch of people with EDs because that's something that I personally
That's
didn't want.
hard.
Um, I didn't want to be surrounded by others with EDs because I had a lot of friends at the time who struggled. So I was like, I don't need more of that. I know some people it's healthy for them to be around. And looking back now, I feel like why didn't I do, group sessions with other girls? Again, it goes into
I
that
think
fear
the
of
group sessions can be really helpful. It's the in person that it becomes really difficult. Like online tends to be great because we still have our own lives. The in person can be more of a like very confrontational because you're seeing a lot of things instead
yeah,
of just having like facilitated good conversations more with
exactly.
you in your own bubble. Mhm.
Right. So I did essentially do that like outpatient with the doctor nutritionist, and I was getting nowhere. I was stuck in this loop of trying to get my nutrients up, and yet my weight wasn't fluctuating, and I was still malnourished, and I was still deep in an eating disorder. And I remember them saying she needs to go to an inpatient and they kind of like shamed the doctor kind of shamed my family. They were like, she needs to go to an inpatient or she's never going to recover. And I remember them being like, well, can she do it another way? Can she have another coach thing? It's like, no, it needs to be a nutritionist and a doctor and it needs to be this way. But doctors are not as educated on eating disorders as we think, in my opinion,
There's a
in my
psychiatric illness.
experience.
It's not like, I mean, they're great at stabilizing people.
Yes.
That's what they're for. They're not great at helping you process the body image and the I don't feel like I'm enough and the trauma that, created food restriction to feel safe.
Yes, and I remember like I would go to the emergency room again and again because I would be, not feeling
Yeah.
good and I would keep going. And I remember a doctor would go and they'd be like, "Okay, so you're not dying right now. You're not having a heart attack." That's what I would go into the room and the doctor would be like, "Okay, so you're not having a heart attack right now, but you are drastically underweight and you have an eating disorder." And he would tell me all these things that I already knew. And he's like, "I can set you up with a nutritionist if you want." And, that's how you can. And then
Gosh, it's like, how do we come in and change that system? Like, that is
exactly.
just so, mm, there's just so much missing there.
There is so much missing and it's like how do you it's almost like I would always say I wish that there were a bunch of genuinely fully recovered people like a bunch of I would always joke with my mom, I wish there were a bunch of Chloes just like working in the medical system so we can get the actual help that we need because you can study as much as you want, but unless you've been through it yourself, especially like orthorexia and just all of it, you need to have experienced it to understand. And it's so funny because I don't know if you remember, but I for a while was like considering being coach. And
I didn't remember that.
that's when I was still undernourished. And then, of course, I got better. I was like, okay, that is not for me. I do not want this. It just shows like how much can go on to your brain when you go through that. And props to you, by the way, just like on a side thing, like not putting it in the video. Props
Yeah.
to you for talking about it every day because, again, like
Interesting
it's hard
thing.
to
Yeah.
remember, it's hard to remember how where you were at that time and how like your life, like when you used to tell me, you're like, my life is not like this is just my job. Like this is what I do.
I have
Like
two different brains.
you have two different brains. You have
Yeah.
to like kind of turn it on. But when you go like that is not, and now I can see it. Now I look at you and I'm like, I don't view you as just like Chloe, the ED coach. I'm like, oh, Chloe is Chloe and she's doing that as a profession. And again, that comes with like getting older. But
No, very much. It's funny. I even like did a little birthday reel yesterday. I was like, this is so funny because like you guys see my life, but you don't like see like I don't talk about food with my friends. I don't like think about what I'm gonna eat all the time. I'm not talking like the only time I ever mention anything is when someone asks me, what do you do? And then I go, I'm an eating disorder recovery coach and I help girls like recover their period and connect back to their femininity. That's like about it. I don't, yeah, it's two different brains. And I really like it's just such a different, I don't know how to explain it. I can be all in on this, and then the second I'm off the computer, I'm like eating disorders never passes my mind. It's just
exactly.
kind of a weird like, and I've had to do that because otherwise I'd be so drained because yeah, it is hard coaching after you've been through it because there's a part of me, I've gone through battles. I don't feel like I'm in that battle at all. I've gone through battles in my seasons of like coaching where I'm like, oh, I just want to stop talking about this. Like, what would my life be if I stopped talking about the food? But that's where a lot more of the self-development came really like to me, especially in like my coaching now. There's a lot more self-development talk, a lot more like obviously still very recovery focused, but I'm finding other ways to bring it in so that I'm like, yeah, finding
Finding
ways to make it not just like just about food. I'm like, we got to talk about other stuff here. Yeah.
Yeah, the life it naturally balances out. And you used to tell me that a lot. You'd be like, it's gonna balance on its own and you don't have to control because you will. And I remember again, I want to mention this because I remember being so terrified about the weight gain and about just like never ending gaining weight. I just wish I could tell my past self, it's not as scary as you think it is because once you get it and you're in it for a while, because it's not just gaining, because you can gain and then lose, you can go back and forth, but it's sitting with it for a while. Getting your period back is a great marker for
Yeah.
me. Uh, it's just not as scary. I just remember being so scared all the time. And now that I'm in it, I'm like, why was I so scared? And
Like
why?
having more energy, having better hair, having
Yeah,
what was the fear in that? But I mean, that's just part of the game. That's just how it is, right?
yeah.
Um, Kind of wrapping this up here, Livia, because I know we could talk for like 12 hours because I
I feel
absolutely,
like
absolutely love, I like miss our sessions. I'm like, oh,
no.
so glad that you don't need them anymore. Like, so glad. Um, I think I'll wrap it up with like a couple different things here. So we'll try and close this up. But I get a lot of investing in coaching something that I can't afford, something
Mhm.
that I'm like not willing to spend, money on. Because there's a lot of the scarcity mindset with the money as well, when there's the scarcity mindset with the food. What would
Yes.
you say to someone? Like, do you still sit here today thinking about the money that you spent to invest in getting my support? Or is that like how do you feel about that? And what would you say to someone who's literally making that the one? I get it all the time. I hop on hundreds of calls like throughout the year where it's like that's the one thing I just can't justify spending a couple $100 a month to like get support.
I am going to share this in the best way I know how, which is going to be a little bit vulnerable, so I hope that's okay. Um, the driving factor for me that was the nail in the coffin that got me fully recovered was a conversation that I had with my dad about my uncle who had terminal cancer. And this was before he passed away, and he was in the thick of it, struggling. And not everyone knows this, but when you go through cancer, it's not just like people imagine you losing hair. Actually, that doesn't happen to everyone. Especially with terminal illness, there is no chemo that you can do. You're given a life sentence. And I remember just him going through trial and trial and trial to save his life. And he lost so much weight, and he was already like a pretty like stick figure, 6'4". Um, this is my dad's identical twin, and our family is very close. And just I remember my dad telling me, I really want you to do whatever you need to do to recover, because if your uncle could do that, he would. And they spent a lot of money on the different treatments and all of that. So this person is losing their life. And he told me, he's like, you have a choice. Other people don't have a choice. Your uncle doesn't have a choice. There are people that don't have a choice to live their life. And he's like, I'm looking at my daughter every day killing herself, because eating disorders aren't just, obviously it's about the weight and it's about being emaciated, but to go even further than that, the depression that you experience, the low self-esteem, the just your brain hurting yourself every single day, being in the state of mind, wanting to take your own life is something that also comes up in an eating disorder. Um, I think that's one of the most common things is just being so depressed that you almost don't even want to be here, and that's why you're okay damaging your body so much. Um, that is something that just changed my perspective so much. When he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a choice to recover. So that choice,
Powerful.
it's your own life. You know what I mean? Like, how much are you willing to spend on your life? I know that we would have spent all our money down to the last penny if it could have had my uncle still be here and have saved his life with his terminal illness. I had a choice. I'm not dying from a terminal illness. I have an illness, and it's a mental disease that gets me emaciated, and it could take my life away. I wanted to say that in like a better way, but
I think you said it in a beautiful way. I like the you have a choice is huge. And just like understanding that I was, coaching you when your uncle got, I don't know if he was diagnosed, but when he was moving through that, and he has passed since, I know. But yeah, the like you have the ability to turn that around. I had someone today, I hopped on a call with her and I use an extended payment plan thing, so we're able to get it to like $100 a month. And she sat there and I watched the ED just go, I can't do that. And I was like, wow,
and use it as
$100 a month for you to recover. It's not worth it. It's not
yeah,
worth it. Are you sure? And I'm
yeah,
like, how long are you going to continue to let the numbers rule your world when I'm like, you have this choice. You have this choice to prevent IVF, to prevent like, heart disease, to prevent all these things. I think that's just a really powerful message that you shared there.
yeah. So like to like fully answer that, how much would I pay to save my life is the same question that I wish um, my family got offered for my uncle. And, when you have a child for my dad, he told me, he's like, do whatever you need to do. What I needed to do was to work with you. So I know that they would, and I know that I personally would, or if I were to have a daughter now, being older, thinking about my own kids, like that's something that I actually think about a lot now is like when I have my own kids, I want to raise them in a way that keeps them as far from that mentality as possible because, you know,
Totally.
I would pay any amount of anything in the world. I would do anything to be to the place that I am now. And I look back and I'm just so eternally grateful that I'm not in that depressive, dark state anymore. And it is really worth as much as you can give, like truly.
Yeah. You don't have your life until you're free from this.
Exactly.
You really don't in so many ways. You're just going through the motions of life every single day, but you're not living until this is completely done.
And to just add on to that real quick, you know, it's funny because something that I have gained from the eating disorder, talking about, there's so much that you lost, right? We already talked about that, like those
Yeah.
moments with your family that you've lost. But the one thing that I can say that I've gained, which is why I don't look back and I'm not angry that it happened anymore. I went through a phase where I was upset that it happened. But now I truly can say what I've gained is I live my life every day as if tomorrow I could be hit by a semi truck driving to work. Like that is the mentality that I think you have to have in order to beat your eating disorder. At least for me personally, I had to understand that because for me to not be warped in, social media and all these like superficial things that just don't matter and to be genuine with my friendships, genuine with my relationships with my family, in like living presently in my world, I had to have the mentality that I can be hit by a car or I can get diagnosed with cancer.
Life is so short. Like stop like holding back on it.
Because you could
Yeah.
get diagnosed with cancer and then, why, like, you need to start living free now. So if you're in an eating
Yeah.
disorder and you're thinking, well, I have the rest of my life, that you can't truly say that. So you need to start now and you need to do whatever it takes to get out as fast as possible
Yeah.
now.
It's so hard that you don't understand that until you're there. It's been one of the hardest things for me because again, I talk with so many people who are so stuck and they so want to move forward. And then I literally will be like, I can coach you through this. I can't say yes to you getting coached. You gotta make the decision. But they'll be so like they can't make the decision. I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart hurts so bad that you are like blocking yourself from being able to get out of this because life's not certain. Like, what, you're gonna go another 20 years in this? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we, but you only understand the beauty of recovery and being recovered once you're in it. Like I can't explain this. Can you explain the feeling? I'm like, I can't explain the feeling. It's words to someone, but to me, I'm like, it's the exhale that I take every single day. Like, whew.
Looking back now for me, it's interesting because I look back at me just like scrolling through your videos and sending that text, and I'm just like, what if I didn't click that video? What if
Crazy.
I look and I see my life in like two very distinct paths, and I'm like, what if I chose not to do that? What if I chose to keep broiling my tofu in the oven every night? And my mom and I now we joke. Well, now we can get to the place where
I
we joke
love
about
that.
every
I love
night
that.
where I
Yeah.
dropped all my tofu. So whenever I'm having a really bad day and I'm like, I call my mom up or I call my sister up, I'm like, gosh, I had such a bad day today. Like, at work, like there were some grumpy people at work and whatever. And I'm like complaining about daily stuff that in comparison mean nothing. They go, is this really anything, Livia, compared to the time that you dropped the tofu on the kitchen floor and you had a
So
breakdown?
funny.
That time
That's
that you had a
so
panic
funny.
attack because you ate after 8 p.m.? Like, does that compare to that? And I'll be like, you know what? No, it doesn't. But anyway, I look back and there's like two parallel lives, and one was working with Chloe and one was staying stuck. And just I'm just so grateful that I made that choice. So to anyone who's like sitting there being like, what do I do? Do I spend the money? Do I invest in this? What do I do right now? Like you're going back and forth because the eating disorder, it'll come up. It'll say it's the money when it's not. It'll say that it's something. It'll say that, oh, but maybe like my doctor's right. Maybe I need to go into outpatient or maybe I need to do that. It'll say all these different things just for you. Honestly, I would say the thing that you're doubting doing the most, the thing that you're afraid of doing the most, do that. Like that's the thing that the voice is telling you not to do. Just pick that because that more likely than not is going to be what's going to actually heal you. In those moments where you're like when I saw like your video and I was like, oh, I have the opportunity to work with her. Pick that moment that you have a realization that you can get out. Pick that. Don't pick the thing that's going to keep you stuck.
I
Yeah.
know. It's like you have two different options. It's like you continue to do the same thing or you take a leap of faith and you move forward.
And I'm sure it's
Yeah.
frustrating for you because you're probably looking at that person and you're thinking,
I'm
oh
like,
my gosh, like I know what path you're because you've experienced it. And it's similar for
so
me. Like
hard.
when I've had family friends come and be like, oh, my son's struggling with an eating disorder, my daughter's struggling. And I'll be like, there are two very different paths they can go down right now. Like either they're going to spend another 7 years stuck in this, or here's Chloe's contact. You can work with her. and you can actually have the chance of having your seeing your child go to college and be free, and even the possibility of having kids or not having kids. Sometimes it comes down to that. Not everyone is
Yeah.
very young when they go through this. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's a crazy part of this experience, but I always have to bring it back to the people who do say yes and who like move forward. And I just am so always beyond grateful. And I know, I worked with one of your friends too, and I actually had a random talk with her just like a couple months ago, something so unrelated to eating disorders, but like we still stay in touch and just to see even her. And now like the trip, like literally the trickle effect of now there's so many other people who are going to be on their recovery journey because you made that decision too, which led to you saying this person, which led to them giving me another number for someone else. And it's like, whoa, crazy. And like it beyond beautiful. Like I literally have no words this whole time. I've just been sitting here listening to you. And I'm like, here's the tears. It's like, what? What?
you
Look
know
at who you became. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It's so great. It's so beautiful. It's beyond beautiful to see you now at this place. Knowing when I met you, it was so different. Pretty sure you lied to me at like every session. And I'm like, okay, like no judgment. I did it too. But like, we got to move past this. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's so funny now because now, I'm pretty off the grid and I'm off social media, and you haven't seen me since I think our last session, and we check in every once in a while, but if I did have social media and I did have that platform, I would be doing what you're doing. I would be spreading the word. Like that for me, that's the only reason you should be online, is to be spreading this genre of recovery and the way that you work with your clients, and the information that you give and put out there. It is so helpful, but working with you is an entirely different experience as well. If there's some advice I could give to your followers watching this that are like questioning working with you, it's, watching your videos are great, but it's such a fraction of what I've picked up on my actual sessions with you that I hold so close to my heart, that go actually beyond my eating disorder. Like even in my, again, like in my daily life, um, just like I could bring up so many things that you've mentioned to me, but you know, the other day my closet was a mess, and I think back to that conversation that we had where I was telling you about my um just like my OCD tendencies and the eating disorder and how that manifests outside of it. And you're like, one day everything's going to be messy and you're just going to let it go and clean it up later. And that's something that I that's like thought about that the other day.
Yeah.
So there are things that I carry with me from our sessions that go beyond what we worked with. So
I love that. And like, thank you, because with every person I get, right, through my doors, it's another learning experience. It's another, how do I help this person move through this? How do we come up with this like way for her to understand this more? And it's always so fun to like be in someone else's energy and strengthen my own skills, right, as a coach and every single person I've coached with. And I know it's been hundreds, I think over 1,000 now, right? But like it's been so many, but it's just so every single person that I've ever worked with has impacted me as who I am as a coach and how I see recovery and how I then teach other people recovery because of the people who have succeeded and moved through or had troubles. And, it's like you get to navigate and learn all the time. And it's a cool process. It's definitely a cool process.
and I remember you telling me that, and I never thought that I would be one on the other side. I would watch your podcast sometimes, with others, and I would be like, oh gosh, I just maybe one day I'll be that person that she can interview and talk to. And I cannot believe that I still have those moments where I'm driving and I'll zone out for a second and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm living the life that I dreamed of for so long because of the steps that I took.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be where I'm at.
It's
Truly,
so
like I'm
happy.
so every day I wake up and I really do feel blessed.
Yeah. So the overall takeaway message is if you binged my content, you probably will like my coaching style.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Olivia, I'm like so beyond proud of you. And like, honestly, your vulnerability today and your willingness to share, I know that that is so absolutely supportive for so many people. And I hope that it was supportive for you too, to kind of wrap it all up and see
Yeah.
this now being like used for someone else's, growth in their own recovery.
Yes, it was really like my only opportunity to, again, because when I was in it, I remember thinking, I just wish I could help people. at some, it's so funny thinking that when you're still sick, but that's what I used to think about. So I did really want to do this today because I wanted to, hopefully, if anyone watching could pick up on one thing, because everything that you watch and everything that you learn and hear is so important. All that information, it'll be used later and understood different when you're fully recovered too.
Yeah.